Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I want to give a heartfelt hello to all of you with this incredible organization, Helping Parents Heal. And I've interviewed a lot of you who are connected to it on my podcast, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But I'm going to start with how my path started, which I need to tell all of you that I was not a believer in anything spiritual. I was married to the love of my life. We were both a second marriage. We were raising each other's children, and we were married close to 18 years. One day, and we're Jewish, and we would go to a grave, and we would put a stone on the grave, and we would do whatever our traditions were. But I did someone really hear me? Was something going on? I don't know. One day I was at my kitchen sink and I was washing some dishes, and my husband Saul was watching TV. He was watching a Jets game. We are from New Jersey, as you can probably tell from my accent. He was watching a Jets game on TV in our family room, and I suddenly got a very strong thought that was not my thought. Now remember, I don't believe in this stuff. And the thought said, the message was, Saul has to go. Many lessons will be learned from his death. And I kind of stepped back and I said, what in the world am I thinking? And I filled a glass of water. I went over to him in our family room. I kissed the top of his head. I gave him the glass of water and I put it out of my mind. I said, this is crazy. And I never said a word about it to anyone. We were skiers and we had a ski house in the Catskill Mountains in New York State. And 2 months later, it was the weekend before Christmas, and we went up to our ski house. Something told me to make this the best weekend. Like if he wanted to go to a restaurant with people I wasn't particularly crazy about, I said, I'm going to make him happy this weekend, whatever he wants to do. And we drove up to our ski house. We had such an absolutely wonderful weekend that as we got in our car to go home, Saul said to me, wasn't this the most wonderful weekend a couple could have together? And I said, yeah, it was. And I thought, yeah, you got everything you wanted. It was great and it was fun. And we skied the greatest slopes and everything we like to do. And we were on the road for about an hour and a half, going about 72 miles an hour. And I suddenly felt our car go into a huge swerve. And I looked over and I saw that he was sound asleep at the wheel. And I called out to him. I was like, Saul. And he woke up and he saw what was happening and he went to pull the car out of the swerve. And as he did, we rose up into the sky for the first of 4 flips. It felt like I was in a gigantic roller coaster. And as we took off for the first flip, another message came into my head and said, he's not going to make it. You are. I'm flipping over and over and over 4 times. And each time we're hitting really hard on the right side, which resulted in my needing 3 major surgeries after the accident. And we ended up landing in a ravine upside down. And I had pulled, I'm petite, so I had pulled myself together in the car as we were flipping, which I think is a natural instinct. And I looked over at him and I remember I had been told, Saul's not going to make it. You are. He has to go. And I look over at my husband and I go, Saulie, are you okay? And I was looking at the shell of my husband. I knew he was gone. He was a funny, charismatic teddy bear of a man, and his entire warm personality had left his body. And I'm thinking, all these things are going on, I don't realize I'm bleeding to death from a torn artery in the bottom of my foot, and my collarbone has been reversed inside my shoulder, and my eye is hemorrhaged, and I've lost a ligament in my knee. But I'm processing that I got these messages, and I look at him and I go, oh my God, this this is true, but I had a sense that he was with me. I suddenly got in that moment that we go on, and that I had gotten these messages. We held up traffic on the New York State Thruway for 2.5 hours that night. And I was conscious through everything. And I suddenly saw a helicopter land and these EMTs jumping out of the helicopter. And they came over to my completely totaled car. There were still pieces of my car on the road 6 months later, and they turned the car over. And I remember so clearly one of the EMTs reaching through my shattered window, undoing my seatbelt, turning me around, and as he started to pull me through the window of my car, a male voice, I tell women I want to tell you it was a female voice, but it was a very strong male voice, boomed into my head, and it said, "Be loving and kind to everyone," as they laid me on the side of the road. Well, I think this would change the multiplication of your cells. I mean, like, instead of screaming for myself and carrying on, I'm telling the EMTs, "What's your name? Thank you for coming out. I know it's the weekend before Christmas. Bless you so much. I've just been given a heavenly directive to be loving and kind to everyone." They load me in the helicopter. They fly me to this emergency trauma center, and I continued to do that. They brought me in on a gurney, and I'm thanking the nurses who are around me, and the surgeon comes up to me, who's going to stitch me back together. I needed 2 blood transfusions, said to me, "I have bad news. I need to tell you your husband is gone." And I said to him, "Doc, I know. And I'm the luckiest woman in the world that I had love in my life from a wonderful man." And that was the way I reacted to everything, including when my stepdaughter came in and she found out that her father had died and she fainted on the floor and they picked her back up. I be loving and kind to everyone. I said, "Sandy, I'll never hurt you. I will always love you." So everything was so much so that I got a call from the assistant to the surgeon who operated on me 3 months later. And she said, "I need to tell you that you changed lives in the emergency room. We never saw anyone react to what happened to you. And we have seen tragedies on the thruway, how you reacted. And you really were amazing." And I said, "Trish, I had a spiritual awakening." So now I'm home, going through grieving hell, crying my eyes out. He's gone. I'm not sure where I knew he was around. I knew there was something up, but I really don't know that much yet. And I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm dealing with all the things that I need to deal with. And I'm very friendly, as you can all tell, I'm sure. So I get a call from my dry cleaner. He says, "Irene, I want to tell you something." He said, "I don't tell a lot of people this, but 8 years ago, I lost my son to a drug overdose. And my wife and I were inconsolable. And we went to all kinds of social workers and psychologists and grief counselors. And finally, someone said that the soul goes on to the other side." He said, "And we're going to see someone who's going to be very famous in 2 weeks. And if you come with us, your husband may come through." I had no idea what he was talking about, but I knew something was up. And I was just out of my wheelchair. So 2 weeks later, I drove 5 towns from where I lived, left Saul's car, which literally said Saul Z on the license plate because he was a real estate developer in a town in New Jersey, and he sold to yuppies, and the kids loved him so much they used to call him Uncle Saul Z. So he had Saul Z on his license plate. And that is the car I drove 5 towns away. And then I got into my dry cleaner's car, and we drove another 6 towns to this Hilton, where this gallery was taking place. And the medium, who was just starting out, and it didn't even cost me anything because I was with my dry cleaner, was John Edward, of all people. And he looked at me and he said, "I don't even want to know your name. Go upstairs." And he chatted a little bit with my dry cleaner. Then my dry cleaner came up, And it was like Saul waited for me to get the idea of what was going on with the amazing messages coming through for other people. And then he said, I'm getting a guy who's saying something about Dr. Pepper. And I elbowed my dry cleaner. This was before voice recorders. And I said, Joel, start writing. Because 15 years before he met me, Saul's brother, who was a big advertising executive on Madison Avenue in New York City, put Saul's name in a Dr. Pepper commercial. And the ad was, Dr. Pepper's coming north from California. Let's talk to the man in the street, Saul Weinberg, not John Doe or Joe Smith, what he thinks of Dr. Pepper. So now, of course, for 35 minutes, John Edward is coming through. He's telling me he died in a different state than where you live. He's telling me you're wearing his ski charm under your blouse. He's telling me you're driving his favorite car with Saul Z on the license plate, and on and on and on. And now I know he's on the other side, and I want more. So I started going to different mediums and healers and all of that. Didn't tell anyone in my family because they would think I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So I started, doing all of this, and I started getting another message. He would come through. He described his toes through someone, the outfit he wore the night he died, the first meal I ever made him, how we kissed any way he could to let me know that he was with me. And then I started being told there was a divine plan, and that Saul and I had arranged before we came to this lifetime that if certain things didn't work out for him, he was going to leave first, and we were going to work together across the veil. Well, I didn't really know what this meant, but I knew it was Saul, and that I was supposed to write a book, and that I was going to be doing things that were going to help a lot of people. So I started to write a book. Now, I want you to know I had no experience writing this way. I've been a violinist. I was a buyer for Macy's. I traveled to the Orient. I did programs and all of that. And I worked in I helped him in his real estate business. I helped him. I was in the banking. I never did anything with writing or anything like that, but it was Saul. And I would do anything for him. So I started writing the book. And one thing led to another. I started with a woman who did automatic writing, and then I graduated to another woman who channeled him. And he came through clear as a bell, including calling me Cuz, which was his nickname for me. How could she know this? And she told me, which surprised me a lot, that when I came into her healing cabin, there was like a gallery of higher beings telling her she was supposed to help me write this book, that it was a divine plan. So I started working with her. And I was a little skeptical if this was true, even though Saul was coming through. But something happened while the book was being channeled that told me, oh my goodness. One day she was sitting at her laptop and she was asking him questions, and he was telling her we had lived past lives. And he said, we met when we were in ancient Israel, and I was a student of his, that he was a rabbi. And she said, I'm asking him, now she was Methodist. She had never heard a word of Hebrew in her life. And she said, I keep asking him what your name was in that lifetime, and I'm getting a very strange name. It doesn't mean anything to me. And she said, but he keeps saying you were such a good little boy, and he keeps telling me Yeled Tov. And I said, oh my goodness, Yeled Tov is a good little boy in Hebrew. So that is what he must have called me in that lifetime. And then I started finding out about other lifetimes that we had, and all these lifetimes that led up to this lifetime. And he even channeled what's going to be happening 300 years from now, and what our earth is going to be like, and when we meet again, and all of that. So in the meantime, I come out with the book, and I'm helping a lot of people, and I'm meeting with people. And I started working for a while with a medium, and I was her business manager, and I had some amazing experiences there. And then one day I'm sitting here at my desk, and I get the word podcast drops into my head. Well, I don't get messages like that. I only got those 3 messages. So I right away asked my publicist, what's a podcast? I'm a baby boomer. I had no idea. And she's, oh, I can help you do that. And I thought to myself, well, who would I interview? And I realized that when I was in the depths of my despair, aside from the spiritual things that were happening, I had worked with a life transition coach, an energy healer, and of course, John Edward, the medium, and other mediums had helped me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to interview grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and people who have amazing stories of rebirth to share. Because let's face it, when we all are grieving so hard, this is where we're on a journey, and it's about healing and all of that. So I thought, let me have people know that there are so many people who can help them, and let me bring these people out, and I'm going to create a healing community of wonderful people that people could go to. And so I started it, and I want you to know what a blessing. In only 2 years I have over 100,000 downloads. We have well over 100 people who we've interviewed. We have a waiting list of people, and people are writing me all the time to say that the podcast has changed their lives. When they have a problem, they go and they listen to the interviews. They're finding people to help them heal. They're finding people to inspire them. It's such an amazing blessing. So that's how I segued from the book. And I call the podcast Grief and Rebirth because, and lately we have a new segment, which some of you may be interested in. I've started interviewing lay people who have succeeded in rebirthing themselves, who have made it through their journeys of grief and have reconfigured their lives, and it's and in a positive way. And many of them are coming on to say, I was inspired by grief and rebirth, and now I want to share this with others. One woman I interviewed a couple of weeks ago is from Lithuania, and she moved to London, and her husband died when her little boy was 11 months old. She said she did not know what to do. She was in such despair. She's a banker. She found Grief and Rebirth podcast, and she said she found Kat Bailey in London through the podcast. She connected with her husband. It's changed her life. It was such a beautiful interview, and I am so humbled and gratified that this is happening. And it's part of what I was told is this divine plan, that I'm supposed to be here to help many, many people. And I'm just very blessed and humbled by it.
That's beautiful. Listen, I just want to tell you, first of all, that we didn't get to introduce you, but that doesn't matter because you did a great job of it. And I just want to let everyone know that I put Irene's bio a little higher on the chat. She wrote this beautiful book, as she said, called They Serve Bagels in Heaven. And she is also someone that many of us know. I forgot to say Kat. Obviously, Kat was also interviewed by her, Suzanne Giesman, Marilyn Kapp.
Isabella Giesman. I've known Marilyn Kapp for years.
Yes, Isabella Johnson as well. But Marilyn Kapp actually has spoken to our group through Iris, who saw her or listened to her on your podcast. And now she's come back 3 times already. And we feel so grateful to Iris, but especially to you and to Marilyn for making that connection. And I want to let you know that Jeff Olson is on here this evening. He's only going to be on here for a little while. So I wanted to just say that your story and Jeff's story are so similar, because obviously you had this rollover car accident. Your husband passed, obviously a little different because Jeff's son passed as well. And he had a near-death experience when it happened in the hospital. And I mean, not in the hospital, but probably on the way to the hospital. An incredible story. Most everyone on here already knows Jeff's story. And we are so grateful that he was also part of Life to Afterlife. Mom, can you hear me? He was part of our trailer for Helping Parents Heal as well. And I don't know, Jeff, if you have just a second to say hi, that would be so wonderful to.
Oh, I'm just thrilled and honored to be here and to listen to Irene and to be with you all. As you know, I'm in this with you. You know, grief you don't get over it, you get used to it. And yet
I saw this little boy and I thought, what a miracle.
Whoops, hang on a second. What's going on there?
That's you talking.
That's me. That's me. I had something pop up in the background there. Okay. No, it's grief, and I can say this, I'm 24 years at the end of this month past the accident. So I've kind of crossed that bridge. But I can look back and see now that grief is the most beautiful form of love, or the most powerful manifestation of love that we experience in this life. And I love jumping in on the meetings. Elizabeth and I are dear friends. We used to live near each other, and I'll jump in the meetings for myself. So I'm really here for me to continue to heal, to continue to be and continue to find my own answers, as all of you are. But I'm here for any of you. Like I say, I'm further in the journey maybe than most, but it's just an honor to be a part of the meeting and part of the group, and anything Helping Parents Heal is doing, I want to be a part of it. So I just send my love and blessings. And Elizabeth, thank you for shooting me the note and let me know you were jumping on.
Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, and I'm so thrilled. First of all, I just want to say very quickly that Jeff is going to be speaking to Helping Parents Heal with his son Aiden next month, and we're really excited about that. Second of all, I feel very honored to be able to make the connection between Irene and Jeff, because she's already interviewed Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll, who was on here just recently. And I know that this interview is going to help so many people. So thank you for being on here, Jeff.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I want to say to Jeff, I think we sent you an email. So I'm just letting you know, I think it's in your emails. You might have heard from us already, but if not, I'm sure Elizabeth can connect us again.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Or Jeff O'Driscoll can too.
Yes, and she was so impressed with Jeff's story about, Dr. Jeff's story about having that experience with Tanya, with, being able to connect with you in the emergency room. And she's really excited about hearing your side of the story. But in any case, Irene, you have so much positivity and exuberance that just exudes from you. I love listening to you, and everyone in the chat box is talking about this. So many people have already seen your podcast or listened to it. I was going to ask you, I think that it's both recorded and then you also have the video available, but I don't know.
It's recorded, it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram. I have a wonderful techie genius who does that. I'm the baby boomer who does the interviews and all of this. So, but she's got it everywhere, and it's growing.
I would love to be able to ask you about one of the most interesting stories about interviewing someone that you've had, in terms of the different people that you've interviewed. And I know that this is just a kind of surprise question, but I know you've interviewed so many fascinating people. Did you ever interview John Edwards? I should look at your site.
I would love to interview him. I've approached him many times, but no cigar. I don't know why.
About what happened between you and him. I mean,
I know, and I reached out to him and I don't hear anything back. So, but before I answer that question about a fascinating interview, I'm seeing in the comments, and I also want to say a special hi to Roseanne and to Iris Pachula and some of my friends now who are on, but I'm getting asked about my Jewish background and if I had any backlash about that. And yes, I did. I actually had and like Jeff, for me, it's going to be 24 years this December. when the accident happened. When I first channeled the book, and it referred to, and I've also, by the way, in my past lives, I was also Italian Catholic in a past life. But it seems like many of the past lives that were channeled, Saul and I seem to fall into a Jewish paradigm for some reason. But we have had other lifetimes when we were Christian or whatever. And I talk about one of them in the book. It was a juicy, fun lifetime. But I was also in the Holocaust and saved a little boy's life. That wasn't so juicy and fun. But I literally went to a rabbi, my rabbi, after I wrote the book. And I walked in and I said, you know, I have references to ancient Israel in this book, and I'd really like to show it to you. I want to make sure that it's historically accurate. And the guy went like this, I can't talk to you about this. You're a woman and it's only in the Kabbalah and you have to be over 40 years old and blah, blah, blah. And he blew me off and he wouldn't talk to me about it. And I had other friends who were Jewish who said to me, this is baloney. You're crazy. So in the beginning, I was very private about it. And my kids also, there were 3 different reactions. I have 2 stepchildren and a natural born son. So my stepson said, this is cool. My stepdaughter said, I don't ever want to hear a word about it. And my son said, don't embarrass me, Mom. And those were the 3 reactions. But now it's been all these years later. And now, oh, someone saying she heard the same thing from her rabbi. You see? And so, but now I don't care. And my attitude is, this is my truth. If you want to hear it and you're open to it, great. If not, and that's your path, that's your choice in this lifetime. Happy Passover to you too, Deb. So, you know.
Oh, wonderful. Well, along the same lines, Roseanne is asking, and Roseanne is someone that you've also interviewed. Do you think there's a reason that you were Jewish in a number of past lives in the book? And did Saul tell you of these lives?
One of the reasons, well, I have about 4 lives that are featured in the book. The one's the ancient Israel life, another where we came together and we were Catholic in that lifetime because in those days, if you were very bright, Saul channeled, and you were a man, you became a priest. And I was a boy in the first lifetime, and I came to the other side. Saul had been my rabbi, and we had a tremendously wonderful, compatible relationship. And supposedly, I was very forward. And I got to the other side, and I said, okay, you're for me, I'm for you. What form do you want me in? And we decided that I would be the girl. And so, but to come into this lifetime with me in all those centuries ago, he decided to come in as not such a apparently bright light in that lifetime, so he wouldn't be whisked off to the priesthood. And he was a farmer. And he talks about an adorable story between us in that lifetime about how he eyed me and how we fell in love and he stole my pantaloons and all that kind of thing. And then we kind of segued into another lifetime where I wanted to be, I was a violinist, which is interesting because in this lifetime I was a violinist also. And I was more of an intellectual, and I told him I wanted to come into a lifetime without him because as soulmates, you can often separate out if you have your own individual growth to do. And it appears I was a bit of a feminist, even in all those centuries ago. And it's a fascinating story about living in a shtetl and going through a pogrom, and I was killed in that lifetime with a child of ours, and how Saul had to deal with that. And then there came another lifetime. He didn't want me to go into this lifetime. Supposedly on the other side, they knew something horrible was going to happen, but I wanted to come in. And that's the lifetime where I was in the Holocaust and I was killed by the Nazis, but I saved a little boy's life. And then there's a fascinating segue as to how we pulled it off for me to come into this lifetime to be with him. And this was the lifetime where we decided that we would have this divine plan. Iris just said my book reads like a movie, and I've had a lot of people approach me, which is why I'd love to talk to Craig to that my book ought to be made into a movie. So I'm just waiting for that to manifest, because it's such a juicy role for a woman. She begins as a boy. She's a Catholic and on a farm. She ends up, being killed in a shtetl. She ends up in the Holocaust, and then she ends up in America, and then ends up 300 years from now, and what the world looks like, and what Saul talked about what the world is going to be like in 300 years when we come back together. You can see the seeds of it already. He was talking about, when I channeled the book in 2000, he was talking about climate change already. He was talking about that too many people were on computers and losing their social skills, that children were going to have an emphasis on emotional skills, learning about confrontation. The education system would be totally different. What life would be like. It's a beautiful chapter, and you could really see that the seeds are already there in with all that we're going through. So I'm just so grateful now that all of this happened. I know Saul's with me. He's working, I'm sure, diligently on the other side. I hear from him. He's still got his wicked sense of humor. He's so cute. And we're doing our job. I'm doing my thing.
That's wonderful. And I think that Craig does need to make this into a movie. It would be amazing. And I think it must be very reassuring to you to know that Saul predicted everything that was happening, and that also he was able to tell you other things about what's going to happen 300 years from now. And so interesting for us.
I got another question here. I'm sorry.
Yes, Deb is saying, do you still need a medium to speak to Saul, or are you able to do it by yourself now?
I communicate with him through a pendulum, and I also I have my thoughts, and I know he's around me, but every once in a while I miss him and I need a hit, and I will talk to someone and he'll come right through. I recently had an experience. My brother-in-law just passed, and he wasn't a great father. Saul was a really wonderful father. And my brother-in-law honestly really hurt his children in a lot of ways. And I've been mad at him for a long time. And now he passed. And I happened to be talking to a medium a month after he passed. And Saul came through, and I said to the medium, I said to Saul, so is your brother with you? He said, oh, yes. And he's very upset. He's ashamed because he just had his life review, and he wasn't such a good human while he was on the earth plane. And I said, what are you going to do about your kids? I literally was able to have a conversation with my brother-in-law. He's only on the other side 1 month. And he came through and he said, I was terrible, and I hope they'll forgive me. And I said, you better talk to them through a medium and encourage them to get counseling. And I was doing this with my brother-in-law, only on the other side 1 month. And his older brother, Saul, came through to protect him and said, don't pick on him so much. He's just acclimating over here, and he needs to do a lot of healing. It was really interesting.
That's wonderful. And I just want to tell you that all of us learned how to use a pendulum. Actually, we've learned several times, first with Christine Salter. And then we also have a group called Connecting with Our Loved Ones in Spirit with Mary Burton and Teva Wilson. And they just last week were learning again how to use a pendulum to connect with our loved ones in spirit. And it's wonderful to be able to do that. It's so freeing to be able to do that by yourselves and know that we can get these messages. And it's pretty amazing how those pendulums really move too.
I taught my 2 8-year-old twin grandsons how to use a pendulum. And now they use it, and they talk to Grandpa Saul.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I've taken away the fear of death for them.
Oh,
So
they have a close relationship with him as well, from what I understand.
Yes. One day my daughter-in-law said, Noah said to my daughter-in-law, Mommy, I'm going to be quiet now and close my eyes. I need to talk to Grandpa Saul. And they're all of 8 years old. And I'm really, I'm very happy that my son has not said, Mom, you're cuckoo and don't do that. And because my mother is 96, and I'd like to, and I still want to get to that interview that really impressed me. But my mother is 96, and it really changes the way you can talk about this because of what I've been through. My mother has communicated with my father on the other side. They didn't have the greatest marriage. She says if he's going to meet her when she crosses over, she's not going. But 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 she's in assisted living now, and she knows the time is coming, and but she's not afraid of dying now. I go, Mom, you're just leaving your earth suit, and I'm gonna have you so busy, Mom, you won't have time to be dead, because I am going to have a million mediums contacting you. They will have to put up a switchboard in the sky for you. And she laughs and she says, I'll give you this clue and that. But it really changes the way we're able to connect with each other and talk about what's to come. And in that vein, one of my favorite interviews was with a woman named Yvonne Heath, who wrote a book, Love Your Life to Death. She has been a hospice nurse, and she speaks, she's done TEDx talks and all, and she talks about the way you live in your life determines many times whether you have a horrible death or a beautiful death. And she talks about the difference, and she talks about not being afraid of death because we know we're going on. And it was just a beautiful interview. It was so wise. So I have to say, love your life to death. Yes. And I have to say that and you can all listen to it. It was a really inspiring interview. And she talks a lot about doing your homework and preparing yourself for that time so that you leave things with sweetness, and that you leave with sweetness around you, as opposed to these families, everyone is carrying on and angry with each other and fighting, and the poor person who needs to cross over and they're having a big fight over him, So it's a really wonderful, I love that interview.
That's amazing. And I just want to tell you, we have an incredible affiliate leader. She's our Helping Parents Heal en Espanol affiliate leader. And actually, I was on the phone with someone from Peru today who she's helped enormously. And she's saying, my mother is Rebecca Weiss and married my Catholic father. My Jewish grandmother raised me with Jewish background and custom until she passed. I was 8 years old, but always told me, follow your intuition. You will one day be around people who will guide you and who will understand all about spirituality. I don't follow any religion, went to church and the day that she wed, and that was it. But now she understands what she meant. Anna has 2 sons who passed the same year, just last year, actually. And she is so inspiring. She's one of the most incredible people. And she's been holding meetings that are kind of worldwide with people from South America, from Spain, and also from Mexico, and from all over, who are presenting to as well as here in the States, to Helping Parents Heal en Espanol. And I think it's really fascinating. I had no idea that she also had Jewish heritage, but obviously raised Catholic. And I think that the most important thing that all of us needs to understand is that we're all the same, no matter what religion maybe we've been brought up with, or no religion, we're all exactly the same.
We are all the same. And that's, by the way, that's one of the things Saul said very emphatically in the book, that when he crossed over, he realized that we are all the same. And another thing he talked about in the book was how heaven deals with people who have committed evil. And that was a very interesting chapter in the book.
Because could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that people here would love to hear that.
Well, he talked about how they cannot continue their soul growth until they have have resolved things with the people who they hurt. So some people, like a Hitler, is probably never coming back, and they have to feel what they did to people. And he talked about when he crossed over, like probably what his brother is going to go through, that he has to continue to try to help his children and to resolve that. And I have to say that I had a rather abusive father when I was growing up, and I never asked for him. I was afraid of him through my childhood. How many times I never asked for him, and my father has come through to apologize and say to me that as I'm around you, so he's around, I am learning from you. Don't stop. I am learning so much. And my father, I think my mother's going to see a very different spirit when she crosses over. He constantly says to me, I was a bully, I was disturbed, I was wounded, and it's enabled me to forgive my father. It's very healing.
That's wonderful. I think that it's true that they are able to be helped by us as well, and they are able to advance thanks to things that happen in our lives, which is wonderful. And I have to tell you, people are saying how much they love listening to you. OMG, she's so adorable.
Thank you.
I love that comment from her mother, LOL. I thought that was great too. I mean, what your mother said is just amazing. I love Irene's energy. Everybody is talking about the fact that they want to get your book as well, to be able to read it, because obviously it has not just a lot of humor and fun passages, but it also has a lot of really good information that all of us are very interested in. And anyway, so how long ago did you start your podcast? How long have you been doing this?
Only 2 years, and I hope all of you will subscribe. I need to say one other thing, Elizabeth. I often get asked if they serve bagels in heaven, if they come with cream cheese and orange juice and coffee. And I tell everyone to read page 8. And you will learn all about that. But the podcast, that's what I'm so humbled by, because I got the message. And everything in our lives is a choice. I could have chosen to stay in my grief and to stay a victim and to never move forward. But because I got those messages and I knew something was up, and then I got them, John Edward channeled that, and then I had all of this happen, I kept choosing to move forward. And when I got that podcast in my head, it was just a word, and I literally said, what is a podcast? But I acted on it because I'd been told there was this divine plan, and I said, okay. And it's just astounding to me, and I'm humbled by it, how many people it's helping. I mean, when this woman who I interviewed, this woman who literally a lay person who rebirthed herself, said to me, I was in the depths of despair and I found Grief and Rebirth podcast.
That's beautiful.
I mean,
Joyce is saying, love those nudges, don't we all? Those are beautiful. And Iris is saying, you always inspire me, Irene. Thank you. Oh. And I truly am grateful to
thank you.
Iris, to you, to Marilyn. But I was going to ask you about how many episodes you have now, because and before that, I was going to just say, you were going to be interviewing all of the presenters and also parents at the conference.
Yes.
And obviously that conference is postponed, but it's going to happen. And Irene and I are very excited about having you there at the next conference. And so anyway, hopefully that will, as soon as everyone's able to get vaccinated and we're able to be a little safer, we can start organizing that again.
I'm absolutely planning to be there. Stephanie and I will absolutely be there. I'm really excited. And you guys, I hope you're all huggers, because after COVID, it is time for hugs. I after we
think everybody on here is a hugger. I know that I am, and it's been really hard for me. But I do also, what I was going to say about the conference thing is that back when you contacted us to be interviewing all of these different presenters, it must have been at the beginning of your podcast. How many episodes do you have now?
We now have 105 episodes, which is amazing. And people are constantly approaching us that they want to be on. People in our healing community, if you go onto my website, ireneweinberg.com, you will see that we feature every single person in a healing community so that anything that you've got, and we separate them out. Here's an author, here's a healer, here's a medium. So whatever your issue is, this is not a Yelp review. You can listen to this person. You can find out what they're about, and you can make your own choice. Do I want to get that book? Do I want to go to that healer? What do I want? And everyone is becoming so enlightened because I'm asking questions that I would want to know if I was learning about this world. So it's becoming a wonderful resource for people, which is just fabulous.
That's wonderful. And Deb is she just put your website again. I had put the direct button to go to your podcast, but it's just www.ireneweinberg.com to get to the regular website. Roseanne is saying, I can't wait to hug everyone. Anna is saying, yes, yes, yes. I want to hug and be hugged. And Daisy's saying, Irene is a breath of fresh air. Love her, which is true. I mean, it's always fun to be able to spend time with you. And one of the things that I was so excited about after our interview was being able to be online with you for about an hour after.
We became friends.
Well, it was a lot of fun. And so Maggie, who has just recently joined Helping Parents Heal, I think it was last week, she said, I am so excited. I see your book on Audible, as listening to books about these things together is a big part of grieving and healing for my husband and me in the 11 weeks since her son passed. So this is something that's really a great thing that you do have those Audible, the Audible version of it available. And I know that a lot of parents feel the same way, that it's a lot easier to listen to something than to sit down and read it. So let's see, Caroline is saying, have you used dowsing rods?
Yes, I have. Yes,
Okay.
I have. Yes, I have.
About that maybe?
Well,
I don't know anything about dowsing rods, so maybe
I have them in the next room. I was working with a medium and she said, watch this. And you hold them up and I would ask Saul a question. And they had one way the rods would move for yes, another way they would move for no, another way they'd move for maybe. And I have to tell you that when I use the pendulum with him, he has a special way he moves the pendulum that says, I love you. That's his way of telling me I love you. It will swing wildly. It's amazing. I mean, it's such proof that they are with us. I'm not doing anything. I'm just holding them and they are moving in answer to a question.
Well, I'm sure that they move the same way that the pendulum does, which is really interesting. And we're going to have to get someone on here. Do you remember who it was who taught you how to use the dowsing rod?
You're asking me, or? You suddenly froze.
Elizabeth froze. I'm not sure if she was asking you about the person, or I'm not sure. I'm looking in the chat and all I can see. Are you back, Elizabeth?
I think I am. That's weird. I don't usually freeze like that, but I was asking, oh, it says my connection is unstable. I hope you guys can hear me. I was asking about who it was that you interviewed who taught you about dowsing rods. Do you remember that, Irene?
It was this medium I was working with. I was her business manager and she taught me how to use dowsing rods. She said, watch this. I said, oh, I have to get a pair. There we go. It was just amazing. And she did everything. And that was who showed me. So
wonderful. Well, I think that's, again, another Zoom meeting that we have to put together. Joe is saying, Irene is amazing. I'm definitely getting her book. I think that everyone understands and identifies with what happened with your husband. It's so nice to be able to hear that you were able to speak to him before, during, and after, and that you were able to get all of those validations, and that you still have such a full relationship with Saul. Christine is saying, thank you so much, Irene, and leadership, Elizabeth, Irene, Jeff. Such amazing speakers and many resources for healing. I feel really grateful too. I want to just say that we have over 200 Zoom presentations, YouTube presentations, and this is going to be one of them. And I feel so grateful to have all of these incredible speakers who come to speak after the conference was postponed. And I know that these are very important right now. Hopefully we'll be able to hug each other and spend time with each other soon. But for now, it's nice to be able to connect on Zoom. And one of the things that we understand, and I'm sure that Saul is here as well, is that all of our kids are here spending time with us each time that we have these Zoom meetings as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is so important to us. And so if you could possibly just give us some words of wisdom in terms of how you live your life to be able to be happy and to be able to move towards rebirth as you are and as you do, before we end this, that would be absolutely wonderful.
That is very easy for me, because when they pulled me out of the car, it changed my life. The message I got: be loving and kind to everyone. So I am conscious in my life about how I behave towards people, what I say to people. I am very aware that the night before he died, my husband happened to say to me, "I'm so lucky and thankful to have you in my life." And the next day he was gone. So be very careful about how you speak to someone in your life. Even when you're upset and angry, it could be the last time you ever hear from them. And the other thing that I have learned is about self-love. Be loving and kind to everyone doesn't mean just them. It's about yourself. So if you're dealing with toxic people in your life, you can detach with love. You don't have to make a big deal, and you don't have to make a big production, but you can be protective of yourself, and you can cherish those relationships that are right there with you and working out for you. And I really do try to live my life. I'm not perfect, but I'm always conscious of trying to be loving and kind to the people who are in my life, and also being loving and kind to myself. Because if I don't take care of myself, who am I going to be for my grandchildren? Who am I going to be? And the other thing, I'm going to leave everyone with something really important. When they pulled me out of the car, aside from the messages and everything that happened on a spiritual level, on an earthbound level, I scripted myself. I said to myself, I have to get through this somehow, because I have to show my son, he was 21, I have to show my son that you can get hit by a grenade in life and still come through it to the other side of it somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do this. This was my thought as I was being pulled through the car, but I will do this. So I've had therapy, I've done all these things, I wrote the book, I've been out there. My son, about 4 years after Saul died, my son said to me, "You know, Mom, there has been nothing worse than watching you in total despair, and nothing better than seeing you being able to have joy again." And that is the gift that we pay it forward.
That's beautiful. And it's so important for everyone to hear, because I think that one of the things that we need to realize is that all of these siblings, if there are siblings, as well as the rest of the family, our spouses and everyone else, are affected by the way that we grieve and the way that we move forward. And so hearing that from you is very inspiring. I also just want to say that that Candy said we'll need an entire day just to hug, which is true. Probably we'll just have to put aside one full day for hugging at the conference and then get started the next day, possibly. And then Christine is saying, Candy, exactly. I feel the same. I think that that's exactly right. But your message is so important, because being able to realize that as you're getting pulled through the window, that you have to be able to be resilient. And one of our parents said the same thing, being able to, let's see, Suzanne is saying, so true. One reason I keep moving to teach other generations resilience, which is so important. And one of the things that I say to parents all the time is that our kids, our siblings who have a sibling who's passed, are going to be the beacon lights of the future. They're going to be the ones who are leading the way. As long as we're able to heal and move forward, because they're the ones who have experienced this, who have gone through it, have experienced what's important in terms of compassion and learning about the fact that we're only here for a very short time. This is our Earth school, and then we're home. So while we're here, we need to make a difference. And you definitely are, Irene. And I just appreciate it so much that you were able to come this evening and speak to all of us. And I know that everyone here, as I say, amazing words, so beautiful words. Love you, Irene. Thank you. Such beautiful words. A huge.
Thank you so much, Maggie.
Yes, as well as I so needed to hear that message. Thank you. Thank you, Irene. Love this. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Irene. So one of the things that we do at the end of every meeting is allow people to unmute and say thank you and goodbye. So we'd like to do that right now. Have you already unmuted everyone, Irene?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
Thanks, Irene.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Irene.
Thank you.
We love you.
Thank
So
you.
good.
Bye. Bye.
Have a
Good night,
wonderful
everybody.
evening. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, so
Good
encouraging.
night. Yes, I would say good
Appreciate
night.
it.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.